From the latest on Caribbean cruises to kosher safaris, pilgrimages to Jewish Eastern Europe, and award-winning wines and international cuisine in sun-drenched Tel Aviv. Sit back and enjoy the trip with the travel edition of the Jerusalem Post podcast. Good morning, Mark.
Is it morning yet? It still feels like night time. I've only just crawled out of bed.
We normally record the pod in the evening, but for a variety of reasons, we're doing it before we both go to work this morning. So Mark's chomping a little bit on tea and toast. I don't know if you can chomp on tea, but...
You've left the bag in, so potentially.
I did leave the tea bag in because it was so weak. Anyway, I thought for our opening this week, we'd do the following. We're recording this just before the weekend. My cousin was just here, and she and a work colleague of mine, both in Israel, said separately, "Oh, we're going to England this weekend, to London." "Why are you going?" says I, stupidly. "Oh, the coronation." We're recording this on Thursday. You're hearing it hopefully Monday, Tuesday, after the coronation. We're just before.
Can I just point something out?
Yeah.
Manchester City have 3 games to go that they have to win before they have their coronation as champions. What coronation are you talking about?
We hope. Actually, I'm amazed that there is soccer being played in the UK on Saturday.
In the UK, it's football. In the rest of the world, it's soccer.
I know, but most of our listeners speak American English, so I'm being polite. I don't want to lose them.
But they must have seen Ted Lasso by now and know that in England, you have to call it football.
It's amazing how you sidetrack. Anyway, back to the initial point.
Coronation.
Which is coronation. Would you go to London to see the coronation? And this is not a, do you like the royal family, do you not like the royal family? But would you go there for all of the pageantry and just being there?
It's awkward for me because I grew up in London, so I had Buckingham Palace, not on my doorstep, but it was always there to see, Trooping of the Colour, royal weddings, and I never went to any of them because I find it's just throngs and crowds of people. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was in London. Unfortunately, the Queen had just died, and I was there a couple of days afterwards, and there were lots of tourists heading to Buckingham Palace. I was somewhere in the middle of nowhere in London, and somebody said, "Which way to Buckingham Palace?" And I had no clue, because London's a very big city. I don't think I would go. I'm not into huge crowds.
Right. So I'm the same as you. One time I'd been to what they call a big concert in a stadium, which was an Elton John concert, and we couldn't afford front row seats, so we're all the way at the back. So yeah, the sound's okay listening to it through speakers, but I watched the whole concert on a TV screen, and I'm thinking, well, I could just be at home in my slippers, in my shorts, holding a cup of tea and watching it that way. And probably the sound in my home is actually higher quality than the sound in a stadium.
Like now when it's early morning, you're sat in your pyjamas. I went to see Oasis in concert in Nebworth, which was, I think, one of the largest concerts in the UK. There were 120,000 people there. There were no seats because for a proper young person's concert, David, you sit on the grass. It's something about the atmosphere as well when you're surrounded by 120,000 people all singing along. You wouldn't want to do that. Well, you might do that at home and in the bath, but...
So you're kind of making the case for actually going to the coronation because there are going to be millions of people on the street singing the national anthem and, screaming with joy when the procession processes past.
Yeah, but it's not singing Wonderwall with 100,000 other people. The national anthem, much as I love to stand and sing the national anthem, it's not Wonderwall by Oasis.
Anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can do that through social media at MarkDavidPod or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
Talking of crowds, I love to be in a football crowd. That's the sort of atmosphere I like. And our first destination sometimes hosts the world's biggest football games.
That's the Maracanã
Stadium.
Maracanã in Rio de Janeiro. So yeah, we're off to Brazil, and from Brazil, it's a hop, skip, and a jump.
And a very long flight.
To the Philippines. We will be headed to both of those destinations over the next half an hour or so. And to get you in the mood, we have a couple of relevant quiz questions.
Question number 1. How many stars are there on the Brazilian flag?
And the monkey eater, or Philippine, is the national bird of the Philippines. But what type of bird is it? The answers at the end of the pod.
This is the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition.
find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com. Brazil, David.
Good at football.
Well, they haven't won a World Cup for 32...
Well, soccer. I should have said soccer. They have some very good players.
We should talk about Brazil.
What, beyond football?
Yeah. Well, this is not a football podcast anymore. We changed it.
We used to present a football podcast. So beyond the beaches, the cities...
Let's find out more about it.
Okay.
Do you know anybody nearby that can tell us?
Potentially. I do know a man who's sitting next to me, and I do know that you've got two ladies sitting next to you
He's
as well.
brought his friends with.
He has, and we're going to hear about different parts of Brazil from different folks. So first of all, we're with Andre Neto. Introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your job and a little bit about yourself, and be honest based on what you told us a few minutes ago.
My name is Andre. I work for Embratur, the Brazilian Tourist Board. I've been with them for 9 years now. I work in the market and international events department. I'm married. Whatever you can imagine, I've done. I've, played soccer, football. I lived in England for 6 years being a musician. My hair down to my waist. I have 3 cats. I love football. My main passion. Yeah, and tourism.
So that means you support Manchester City.
I support Liverpool.
And that was a great interview.
Right.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll move on to another country now.
Because Andre supports Liverpool, we'll talk to his friends instead. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Celia Andrade. I live in Iguazu. Foz do Iguaçu is the birth of Iguazu Waterfalls. I work for tourism promotion in Iguazu Tourism Board for more than 15 years. And I'm very happy to talk about this destination of Brazil everywhere I go.
If anybody hasn't gone and checked out a video, unless you've actually been to Iguazu, go have a look at a video of the waterfalls. You won't regret it.
And
I'm Roberta Werner. I'm the executive director from Rio Convention Visitors Bureau, which is the Visit Rio, which is a non-profit company responsible also to promote Rio. So we are the tourist board from Rio. And I live in Rio. We live in the marvelous city.
So she said Rio 5 times there. Do you have any clue what Rio is?
I think it's Brasilia. It's another name for... No, seriously.
Okay, now we've got to do the formal part of the interview.
So, this one's for Andre. When you think about Brazil, the first thing that comes to mind, and we've already mentioned it, is football, is soccer. The bright yellow and the blue of the... I think they're called the Seleção, the Brazilian national football team. How important is that to promoting Brazil?
I think it's very important as long as our players are still playing for the big teams out there, they bring attention to our country. When people wear the Brazil national team jersey, everyone recognizes it. It's very important for us as a destination. It helps. Everything helps.
But Brazil is much more than football. Of course, when you think about Brazil, you think, especially at first time, we say, oh my God, I have to go to Brazil. And then you think in the main entrance, which is Rio. And of course, you think Rio, but you need to combine with Iguazu Falls, with our sisters. We have many other attractions in terms of gastronomy, in terms of beach, of course, in terms of attractions, iconic attractions. We have ecotourism. I mean, we have so many other things to sell Brazil in terms of tourism,
So that's the end of the interview with you as well, because you've told us everything there is to know about Brazil.
How easy is it to get to Brazil from Israel, from Europe, from North America?
There are a few possibilities. We used to have a non-stop flight until 2019, if I'm not mistaken, which stopped during the pandemic. But we're having talks at the moment, and hopefully it will come back this year at some point, the non-stop flight between Tel Aviv and São Paulo. There are plenty of options. As we were talking before, the 3 of us came with different airlines all the way here. Celia took Swiss Air, Roberta took TAP, and I came with ITA Airways. Besides that, you have Iberia, you have Turkish Airlines, you have Air France, there's one through Ethiopia, Emirates. There are many options, many options.
We've heard about Rio. Before we get on to more countryside, what about other cities? What else is out there? Because, again, You're very fortunate, Roberta, in that everybody knows the name Rio. What about other places?
We have Salvador in the northeast. We have Recife also in the northeast. We have Manaus up in the north in the Amazon. Celia is going to talk specifically about Foz do Iguaçu later. But yes, there's Foz do Iguaçu, which is an amazing place. We have São Paulo. We go moving down. We have Curitiba. We have Porto Alegre. We have 27 states, each with a capital, plus smaller cities around the capitals.
So are the cities, are they modern, historic, cultural, music? What are the essence, or is each one very different?
They each have their own peculiarities. Some are more historic, some are more modern, like Brasilia, for example, the capital. Some are more prone to adventure tourism. If you're going to Brazil, take some time to enjoy it, because there are so many things to do that you can't, I'm going to go spend a weekend, and you won't be able to do much. You'll choose one thing to do if you spend a couple of days.
Probably a question for Celia here. I've got 10 days to spend, and I don't want to go to a big city. What do you recommend?
Of course, Iguazu Falls, but I would like to tell you that there are plenty of Brazils inside one Brazil. I mean, Brazil is very different. If you visit north, if you visit center or south, they are different cities and different places. But I would like to tell you that the most Latin city, I would say, maybe it's Iguazu. I'll tell you why. We are at the border with Argentina and Paraguay. So when you've been there, you can experience 3 countries in one trip. And inside Brazil, we usually say that you can wake up and have your breakfast in Brazil, then you cross to Paraguay to have lunch, and you have dinner in Argentina, and you always come back to Iguazu to sleep because it's the most structured city.
Brazil has a Jewish population of over 100,000. Jewish people have lived there for hundreds of years. What is the offering for Jewish people? What can they see? What can they do?
We have, I think, at the moment, 120,000 Jewish people in Brazil. The first synagogue built in Brazil was back in the 1630s in Recife.
So it predates all the American synagogues.
I think the first Jewish person that went to Brazil was with the guy who discovered Brazil, like 1500. There's an amazing Jewish museum in São Paulo. The community is very well organized. We have more than 100 synagogues.
And we just opened a new museum also in Rio, which is gorgeous. It's beautiful property over there. So I like at this time just get the opportunity to invite the people that is visiting Rio. It's come to see this new museum.
When we met up, I asked, is today the day for caipirinha?
What's that?
Caipirinha is a Brazilian cocktail.
What's in it?
Rum?
That's it, rum.
Yeah, it's made by a cachaça, but I think André knows much better than I do the history of a cachaça, you know?
Cachaça is Brazilian firewater, sugarcane alcohol. It has a very specific taste. It's quite strong. If you're not used to it, it has some blowback, but it's delicious. And the traditional caipirinha is made with lemon or lime, and it's all kind of mixed together. But nowadays we do caipirinhas with all the traditional Brazilian fruit as well. It's a great thing to go and try out.
So I asked about caipirinha because I wanted to get onto the subject of Brazilian food. I know very little about it. What food can I expect when I'm in Brazil?
Well, mostly our barbecue, churrasco, we call it churrasco, and also feijoada. They are the most typical, but each region has their own different gastronomy.
Is it very meat-based?
Meat-based, but also vegetable-based as well.
What makes Brazilian food so interesting is the use of our local ingredients, all the fruit that we have, different types of fish. How many do we have? I don't know. It's amazing. You can have whatever you can imagine. We have different types of fish and meat as well. The variety, the mix of ingredients that we have, Brazilian chefs are very creative. We come up with some delicious things, delicious dishes, and we improvise with what the world has as well. We get pizza and we make our own pizza with our own ingredients. The same with sushi, fruit sushi, for example. We make our own creative inventions.
I'm ready to get on a plane to Brazil. How do I find out more details?
I would ask you guys to visit our website, Embratur's website, visit Brazil with an S.com.
Andre, Celia, Roberta, thank you very much.
Brazil Fact File. Brazil has many international airports. The largest are in Sao Paulo, followed by Brasilia, Campinas and Rio de Janeiro. Sao Paulo can be reached directly from most major airports: JFK, Newark, Miami, Dallas, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, Washington DC, London, Paris, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Dubai and Istanbul. $1 will buy you 5 Brazilian real as of May 2023. Brazil is a year-round destination. Temperatures rarely dip below 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, apart from in the mountains and southern regions. The climate varies from hot and dry in the arid interior to humid and sticky in the tropical rainforests of the Amazon jungle. Brazilian cuisine is characterized by European, Amerindian, African and Asian influences, reflecting the country's mix of native and immigrant populations. There are over 100,000 Jews in Brazil, with 2/3 of them in Sao Paulo and Rio. Sao Paulo has around a dozen kosher restaurants.
Now it's time for the latest travel news from the Jerusalem Post podcast, Travel Edition. Despite the recent crises in Israel, it appears that faith-based tourism is booming. Tourism has more than recuperated, according to David Katz of Sarel Tours and Conferences.
After a successful Israeli debut season for Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas, the cruise line announced it will bring a newer, larger ship, Jewel of the Seas, for the 2024 season. More about cruising in our next episode in 2 weeks' time.
Israeli Tourism Minister Chaim Katz and Georgia's Foreign Minister Ilya Darshiashvili signed a tourism agreement between the countries. The agreement is to promote the tourism organisations of both states, along with tour operators and travel agents.
US presidential hopeful and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says the Sunshine State will soon be the only US state where El Al will service 2 major cities. The airline will offer direct flights to Tel Aviv from both Miami and Fort Lauderdale starting this fall.
Something you may never have dreamed would happen. Yeshiva University of New York is holding a Jewish Studies Conference in the United Arab Emirates as the Gulf state continues to expand its normalization with the worldwide Jewish community following the 2020 Abraham Accords.
You'll never guess how I picked the next destination.
No, I won't.
Oh, okay, right, let's move on. No, I was reading a book the other day.
Is this your annual page read?
And when I say book, it's more of a magazine.
Comic.
And when I say magazine, it's more the internet. But
Okay.
And I saw the name of the president of this particular country, and I thought, we have to go there. It's just such a cool name. His name is Bong Bong.
Is it his real name?
No, he's called Ferdinand, but it's his name that he goes under. I think because his father or his grandfather was president, so he wants to differentiate himself from that. So he's known as Bong Bong.
So we're talking about the Philippines. Now, you and I think, have met Filipinos in the past who also have sort of nicknames that they go by that are not necessarily their birth names.
We have mentioned the Philippines in the past. I think when we did a tour of Tel Aviv bus station, within the centre of the bus station, there's a large Philippine market because there are a lot of people from the Philippines living in Israel, and that's where they congregate at the weekends.
Am I right in saying you said there's actually a Philippine church in there?
I think there are about 6 or 7 churches, and at least one of them caters to people from the Philippines living in Israel.
Which is an amazing story, and as Mark said, we did a podcast about it, so go back into our archive and look up our trips to Tel Aviv. The person who represents Filipinos here in Israel, of whom there are thousands, and we'll hear a bit about that in a moment, and the person who represents the country, of course, is the ambassador, and he's our next guest.
And his name is Pedro, son of Pedro, or Pedro Jr., as he likes to call himself, Ambassador Pedro Lelo Jr.
Well, I am relatively new in Israel. I have been here on a pilgrimage back in 2015. Back then, me and my wife Carrie promised to return to Israel with our children. The Holy Land and its people hold a very special place in our hearts. Right now, I'm very glad to have this opportunity to talk to you and share some insights about my role as the Philippine ambassador to Israel, as well as my ideas on how to further improve the current state of relations between our two countries.
You've got a strong connection as a country with Israel, with the Jewish community. How does that manifest itself in tourism?
A meaningful friendship binds Filipinos and Israelis, owing to our shared values and historical ties. Back in the late 30s, President Manuel Quezon provided refuge in the Philippines for Jews fleeing Nazi persecution in Europe. President Quezon wanted to take in 10,000 Jewish refugees, even offering his own home. Eventually, 1,300 European Jews made it to our country and settled in Manila, and they referred themselves as the Manilaners. Well, the Philippines also played a key role in the establishment of the State of Israel. Our country was the only Asian country which voted in favor of the establishment of the State of Israel, with our vote being the tiebreaker during that crucial voting moment in the United Nations General Assembly. As Israel celebrates its 75th year of nationhood this 2023, and the Philippines, our 125th, this important moment in our shared history should all the more be celebrated. There are around 30,000 Filipinos currently live and work here in Israel, contributing immensely to Israeli society and economy. They take care of the elderly, many of whom are Holocaust survivors. They are valued by Israeli families not just for their excellent work ethic and professionalism, but especially for their genuine care for Saba and Sabta, whom they treat as they would their own grandparents. Just recently, we also welcomed Filipino workers to the Israel hotel industry, where they are now hailed as valued additions to the workforce. And last year, close to 10,000 Israeli tourists visited our country, and we are confident we can double that number by mid-2023. Many of them headed to the beaches of El Nido and Coron in Palawan, as well as to the world-class surfing hotspot of Siargao. In fact, there is already a community of Israelis and Jews in Palawan, and they have opened a Shabbat in El Nido, while there are plans to put up a synagogue in Siargao. Well, traveling to the Philippines is easy since Israeli passport holders enjoy visa-free entry for visits up to 59 days. The initial stay can be extended for up to 5 months.
When you look at a map of the Philippines, it's like a jigsaw. There are islands dotted everywhere. Is island hopping a key feature of tourism in the Philippines, and is it easy to access these islands?
Some see our 7,600 islands as a challenge to travel, but we see it as a gift. The Philippine archipelago is home to the most diverse ecosystems in the planet. The stunning beauty of our coral reefs is unmatched, as well as the diversity of the marine life it harbors. We have many diving destinations to offer. One, the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Tubata-Hari. Two, the colorful corals of Anilao and Batangas. And third, the World War II shipwrecks in Coron, Palawan. Measured end to end, we also have one of the longest coastlines in the world, which makes for an abundance of beaches. They are ideal for summer holidays, water sports, island hopping, sailing, and scuba diving. The Philippines has been voted consecutively as the world's leading destination by the World Travel Awards from 2019 to 2022. Of course, many Israelis know the Karamoan Islands, the most coveted paradise archipelago where Survivor franchises from Israel, USA, etc. were filmed. Donsol is also in the same region where you can swim with gigantic whale sharks, the largest fish species in the world. They can grow as big as 3 cherut placed end to end. But don't worry, they're vegetarian. We also have marvelous mountains such as Mount Apo, aside from being the highest peak, is also home to the endangered species, our majestic national bird, the Philippine eagle. Also, our perfect cone-shaped volcano, Mount Mayon, and worth mentioning are the rice terraces that were hand-carved by our Ifugao ancestors and still being utilized in the present time on the hills of Banawe and the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Mount Hamiguitan. In the island of Bohol, we have the Chocolate Hills, the adorable tarsier, which is one of the smallest primates in the world, and the Lobok River, where one can cruise while enjoying lunch and being serenaded by local musicians. One of our tourism slogans used to say, "You don't like this island? Then you have 7,600 others to choose from." So yes, our many islands are a key attraction of our tourism. It is not a challenge, but an invitation to adventure.
Manila is a vast metropolis, Manila being the capital city of the Philippines. What is there to see and do in Manila?
At its heart is the walled city of Intramuros, with its old world charm and Spanish-era structures, such as Fort Santiago. There's the Manila Cathedral, and there's San Agustin Church, a Baroque church listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And just outside Intramuros is our complex of national museums, which are, by the way, all free of charge and do not require tickets. Just walk right in and enjoy the exhibits on Philippine history and art. Go see the largest captured crocodile in the world, Lolong, displayed in our National Museum of Natural History. And Binondo, the oldest Chinatown in the world and home to our Filipino-Chinese community, is a must-go for foodies. Rojas Boulevard is where you can relax and marvel at the world-famous Manila Bay sunset. And when the sun goes down, the fun just begins, as Manila and its nearby cities are renowned for their legendary nightlife and parties.
Is there a particularly good time of year to come visit the Philippines, whether it's because of specific festivals or maybe the weather's a key factor?
January to May is the best time to visit the country, with summer starting around March. Summers in the Philippines are hot and humid, so I would advise light to loose clothing, sunglasses, caps, sunscreen, and plenty of water. November to February is cool. June to October is rainy. July to September is the typhoon season.
From America and Israel, where most of our listeners are, what's the easiest way to get to the Philippines?
With the Abraham Accords, shortening routes between Israel and our region, the Philippines is now even more accessible via Dubai on Emirates, via Abu Dhabi on Etihad, or via Manama on Gulf Air. There are also direct flights from many North American and European capitals to Manila.
How would people find more details about visiting the Philippines? Is there a website to go to?
To begin planning your dream Philippine vacation, you can visit the website app.philippines.travel, your guide to safe and fun travel to our country. You can also send us an email at telaviv.pe@dfa.gov.ph or send a message via our Facebook page at PH in Israel.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for your time and perhaps more importantly for your message, for your reaching out to the Jewish people around the world and of course to people here in Israel.
Again, thank you, Mark and David, for having me on the show. It has been a pleasure to share my thoughts with you and your listeners. And I hope that this conversation has helped to deepen the understanding between our two countries. I want to take this opportunity to cordially invite our Israeli friends to visit the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Philippines Fact File. The main airport of the Philippines is Ninoy Aquino International Airport, which can be reached from Los Angeles, JFK, San Francisco, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Istanbul, Sydney, Toronto, and many other major cities. Cebu can be reached directly from Dubai, Istanbul, Singapore, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. $1 will buy you 55 Philippine peso as of May 2023. The climate of the Philippines is tropical and maritime. It's characterized by relatively high temperature, high humidity, and abundant rainfall. It's similar in many respects to the climate of the countries of Central America. Rice and coconuts are staples of the Philippines. Adobo is one of the most popular Filipino dishes and is considered unofficially by many as the national dish. It usually consists of chicken, stewed or braised, in a sauce usually made from vinegar. There is a Jewish community in Manila. Details of services and kosher food can be found at jewishphilippines.net.
So our thanks go to Andre, Roberta, Celia, and Ambassador Pedro Jr.
I have to say, these are two countries I really want to visit. They're so very different, and at the same time, they are very large countries with very large populations and so much to see.
Now, you always say, these are destinations I want to visit.
It's true.
Partly because you want to go there. Maybe you're not going to actually answer this, but is there anywhere in the world you don't want to go?
One or two places, yeah. My desire to visit Tehran currently is limited.
I have to say, I'm actually desperate to visit Iran, but I don't want to go to Tehran. I want to see Isfahan and some of the other ancient cities. I think it would be absolutely fascinating. Anyway, that will save for another podcast, inshallah, at some future point, hopefully.
A big thank you to everybody, as we said. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please subscribe. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, or any podcast provider that you use. And if you enjoyed the podcast, which we know you did, give us 5 stars and write some nice things about us.
And of course, we love to receive your emails. You can do that via markdavidpod@gmail.com, and you can find us on social media where you see pictures and videos, and we'd love to see your material as well, and you can do that at markdavidpod. Mark, quiz question.
Oh, is it time for the answers?
It is.
Question number 1. How many stars are there on the Brazilian flag? And the answer is 27, which represents 26 states and 1 federal district.
Very similar to the United States flag.
It's like half American.
Right. But about 5 times the size of America or something. The monkey eater or Philippine is the national bird of the Philippines. But what type of bird is it?
One with wings.
Correct. We'll end the pod there. It's actually an eagle.
Ah, so also like America.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Look at that. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed the pod. Do join us again in a couple of weeks' time, where, according to Mark, I think we'll be doing our cruising special.
Unless I'm at the Maracanã Stadium watching football.
Take care, folks.
Bye-bye.